I mentioned in the beginning that I obviously worked with so many iconic people. One director, one of my favorite directors, even actors too, Clint Eastwood. You got to work with him on a film called Absolute Power, and I know it featured Gene Hackman, who we just sadly lost. I know you made a wonderful post about him. I'm just curious to
Mm.
hear if there any memories that you share with Gene and what it was like working with him on that film and just knowing someone like that.
Oh yeah, I mean it was an incredible experience. He was he's just a lovely, lovely guy, and he's the same age as my father. So for me, it was sort of like both of us were like, oh my God, we're like we're really far apart in age, and we had to do this pretty sexy and violent scene together. And so when I first walked on the set, Gene said to me, I'm a little nervous about our scene," and I said, "Oh, don't worry, Gene, I'm going to take care of you." And that was sort of the beginning of our friendship because he would set a place for me every day at lunch next to him, and he would always say, "Melora, come sit here," and just he just really wanted to sort of be together during this time. And we had so much fun, and he was so lovely and such a gentleman. And I was wearing like a skimpy little dress, and my skirt was flying up all the time. And as soon as he'd say cut, Clint would say cut, he'd put my skirt down, and he'd always give me his to help me up, and just was so he couldn't have been more just more respectful and lovely. And we were both covered in bruises, and but he was just a joy to work with. It was Clint Eastwood and Gene Hackman, so I was like, oh my God, this is like movie royalty. I was so excited. It couldn't have been a more exciting moment for me, and I had never done a red carpet before. And I remember being really nervous about it, and, getting to the end of it and, doing it and being all nervous, getting to the end and going, I should go back and do that again. I think I could do that better. That would be kind of fun. And, it's now so easy for me, but it was really hard. And I was like, my heart was racing and I was really nervous. But yeah, it was really, just a joy. It was like a highlight, certainly a highlight in my career working with those two. And the fact that I think that, Clint is very loyal to he has this sort of same crew, and he hires a lot of the same actors over and over. And he really will, he's open to kind of any feedback from any of his crew. So like you don't normally hear on sets, an electrician or a grip or something saying something like, "Well, what about if?" But that's because on Clint's sets, he has people that he really respects, and they don't say anything. It's not like they're like chiming in all the time. But if they do chime in, he listens because and I could tell that he really respected me like that, and that was just that in itself was a huge boon for me. And then with Gene, it was like, we had to kind of come in kind of tipsy, like we'd had dinner together and we'd been out, and we were coming back to kind of, have sex in his place. And and I just, as Clint doesn't say act, or he sort of says roll camera, and then he doesn't say action. He just says whenever you're ready. That's what he says.
Mhm.
And so we were behind these two doors. We come in through these doors, and Gene and I were kind of looking at each other, and I just sort of like leaned my body into his body, and he leaned back into me, and I was like, okay, well, we're just home free, because that's all you need to know, that you're both, and it was like that he received my sort of gesture, which was sort of my way of getting into the scene where we were, and he kind of gave me back that physical, and it was just so great. It was like, just, because I've been doing it a long, long time, and I really do know, I understand my craft in a really deep way. And so does he. And so it was just this wonderful meeting of the minds, even though we were so many years apart. There was this meeting of like the craft that was incredibly heartening to me and confidence building.